Here's a stat that's pretty crazy for you. More than 95% of online businesses fail within just the first few years. Yeah, 95%, meaning only 5% are actually successful. That means if you're looking to start a business from scratch, your chances are pretty low. Well, don't worry too much because I have some good news for you. There's a few other ways to make your odds in your favor. And there's a few secrets I want to share with you. After brokering more than $120 million worth of these online businesses, there's some do's and there's some don'ts. There's some things to avoid, and especially certain types of business models. And in this video, I'm going to share the 5 specific types of online businesses that keep showing up in my winner circle again and again. These are going to be 5 online businesses that never seem to fail. No matter what the market says, no matter what happens in the world, they seem to keep going up and up. And you're going to want to stick around for the whole video because I'm going to share the business model that I'm doubling down on in 2026 and a little bit of experience on why. And before we dig in, if this is your first time seeing me, if you're interested in learning about how to earn from anywhere, then make sure you hit subscribe and let's go ahead and get started. Now, I just want to preface this that this is a majority, and from my own experience, there's always going to be outliers and there's going to be things that, hey, this business failed or this business failed. Well, I'm talking about business models here. So the business model is a big, important part of the aspect, but then what niche you're in, what sort of implementation you have, all that stuff is going to vary. But by choosing a business model alone, you're going to increase your odds. And that's why I love this first business model, which is a service-based business or an agency. Agencies are the first business model that never really seems to fail, and there's a few reasons why. And I know what you're thinking, like, agencies, really? That's not passive income. That's not even really online. Well, you're right in some ways. There's a ton of online agencies that have fully remote teams, and they've basically gotten to a point where they've replaced themselves with a CEO. It's not going to happen in the first year, but after 4 or 5 years, most established agencies have enough profit, enough structure to build themselves slowly out of the business, where you go from working 60, 80 hours a week to only working 20 or 10 and then 5, and you slowly progress with good hires and intense training sessions. Now, here's the part that's important. An agency that either saves people time or makes them more money are going to stay in business. These are the important things: is an agency structure that has a really good system and a team, meaning you know how to hire good talent and you know how to retain that talent, and that talent can deliver a good experience to a customer. You're going to be in a good shape. A few agencies that I love to see are paid advertising agencies, meaning I give you $10 and then your agency gives me $20 back and you only keep a few dollars in between. That's going to be a big success. And this is where most agencies succeed. They have a clear ROI on the investment and they have economies of scale, meaning they have such a large team that's dedicated to my account. And basically, if I were going to try to replicate this same experience, there's no way I could pay my $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month and get that same quality. A few other agencies that I've seen a lot of success with are video editing agencies, SEO agencies, email marketing services where they get you leads and book you calls. And then there's some of the boring ones that are just like bookkeeping, accounting. Think of things that people need on a monthly or yearly basis and figure out how you can build an agency around that and try to stick to one skill. You either save people time or you save them money, and even better if you can do both. And again, agencies aren't glam, glitter, and rainbows. There are some serious things to consider. If you don't like managing a team of people, it's likely not the business model for you. If you don't want to grow a team of at least 10 to 20 people, the agency success model is likely not going to work. There are smaller boutique agencies, but you need to be selling something very high ticket and you need to have a unique skill set. You're likely going to be the point of failure in those businesses though, meaning it's going to be a little bit harder to outsource. And so if you don't want a huge team and you want to maybe have a little bit of a smaller operation going on, but still a little bit more profitable, then I'm talking about coaching and consulting businesses. And this is the second online business. Coaching and consulting is interesting because it's relationship based, but it can also be pretty passive. Usually you have a coaching plus a course option, meaning maybe you do group coaching, then you have monthly sessions with another coach. And so the way to do this and the way to scale is either offer B2B consulting. This is where you're helping businesses solve specific problems and you're not really working on the actual implementation, you're just giving advice. business. And then on the coaching business, you can also have the same thing. It's usually B2C, but there are B2B coaches. There's fitness coaches, business coaches, relationship coaches, executive coaches, and sometimes a coach acts like a consultant and sometimes consultants act like coaches. Again, it really depends on the business model, but consultants are usually in a very specific niche of a business model, and coaches are typically a little bit more general. And again, the great thing about the coaching and consultant business model is you can have a fairly small operation. You can have like around 2 to 3 people, depending on how big you want to scale things. And then you just need to structure as like the lower entry to consulting and coaching is you buy an hour and I give you an hour of my time. And that's the transaction. And so to actually improve and build a business around this, you need to shape it a little bit differently. You need to sell the outcome of what is going to happen after they finish your coaching program, after they finish your consultancy, contract. What is the deliverable, or what are they actually getting? And so what I typically recommend people doing is having a 3-month outcome. So month 1, they start. After 3 months, they're going to have some sort of outcome. Do a really good job of getting that outcome, making sure that you can deliver and fulfill upon that. And then they're going to have such good success from that, they're going to want to keep going. After that 3 months, you go to the 6 months, the 12 months, and you're thinking longer picture. So a lot of this is in a discovery call, understanding what the person's goals are, breaking those goals into smaller chunks, and then basically putting them on a plan on how they can achieve those goals and holding them accountable. The way to scale consultancy, agencies, and coaching businesses is literally how you start. You start off just doing it yourself. You do the sales, you do the marketing, and you do the coaching yourself. And then you actually figure out an actual platform and process. So instead of doing all one-to-one calls every single day, you say, hey, after you finish this course module, then you book a call, because they're going to have 4 or 5 training modules over 4 or 5 days. They're going to have context, and all of those initial questions that you would have answered are going to be built into that course. So that way you can get them faster results, and you can essentially not trade as much of your time to get them that same success. And so typically this is the way it goes: is you're building the course, you're actually reducing your time of trading that sort of value. And then overall, what you can do is outsource yourself with other coaches, people who've been successful in your coaching program, people who you think understand the business model really well. You can basically replace yourself with them. Or what I've seen a lot of people do who have built a personal brand is, instead of doing weekly coaching calls that are one-on-one, they move to weekly group coaching, and then they move to monthly group coaching with a weekly group coach call. So there's a lot of ways to do this, but that's the way that you can scale it and basically remove yourself from the business. If you guys like that part, you're going to love this. I'm giving away my best-selling book for absolutely free, and here's how you can get the audiobook in just a few seconds. Inside this book is the same techniques I've used to work abroad in paradise in more than 100 different countries. And the best part, this strategy hasn't just worked for me, it's helped hundreds of thousands of people earn more, work less, and travel the world. I'll leave a QR code here where you can get the audiobook for free with a free 30-day Audible subscription. Now, the business model that I'm doubling down on in 2026, this has been my favorite business model since I bought and acquired my first software business back in 2018, is software businesses. So SaaS is the holy grail for me because it checks the most boxes. It's the most passive, it has the biggest moat, and it's the most predictable. And the reason I love it so much is because of recurring revenue. Recurring revenue. Yes, let me say that again. When someone signs up for the software, they essentially pay you every single month until they cancel. This creates a very predictable, stable income and revenue, and it makes it a really good business model because every month you're not starting over at zero. This business model is super scalable because you can sell 10 times per month or 10,000 with really not needing to do much. It's also super high margin. A lot of my software businesses are around 70-90% software margins because a lot of the upfront work has already been priced in. You build a software platform, you spend a couple $100,000. You don't need to keep spending that every year. And again, the valuation, SaaS businesses sell for the highest multiples out of any other business model. And the reason they sell for the highest multiples and highest valuations is because they have a bigger moat around it. They have that recurring, predictable income, which buyers love. So the SaaS market, just like every other industry and business model out there, is having some disruption with AI. It wouldn't be fair to not mention it. Basically, AI is replacing and making it a little bit easier to build software businesses. I have not seen one impact impact, or one person who has rebuilt Zoom, rebuilt any of the major software that I've used on a day-to-day basis at a cheaper, lower rate. When that starts to happen, I think there's going to be some issues and some more competition. But again, competition's good for the market. It's going to create more opportunity. There's a lot of things that I would just look at, and I would basically go look at all the enterprise software that companies use, figure out what are the most expensive software tools, and try to build a better version for that and say, hey, this is a great enterprise value, and I think there is a smaller business use case here. And then just try to build that software for a smaller niche in the market, because the software companies charging, $100,000 a year for their enterprise software, if you can just charge people $10,000 a year, there's likely some businesses that are really going to need that. So there's a lot of great ways to build a software business now, and it's easier than ever to get started. It's still a lot of work. You still need developers to make it happen. But what I've noticed from my personal experience is you can use a junior developer who knows how to use AI to really fact check and debug his work a lot easier before passing it off to that senior developer. So overall, it's cut down software costs and dev costs by like a very marginal amount, maybe 10 to 20%. But in general, I don't see it replacing software. And the main reason is product market fit. A lot of people think that just because AI can build a little software tool, it's going to have that product market fit. It doesn't have customers. It doesn't do the marketing. It doesn't build trust in people. And so it's missing that aspect. And so that's the one thing that AI hasn't been able to replace yet. And so if you're looking to buy a software business, I actually just acquired 3 businesses for people in my acquisition program this past month. And here's a few things we're looking for. We're basically looking for a fairly low churn rate and a business that's been around for 3 to 4 years. And they're basically flat or slightly growing. They're churning 5%, but they're growing 7 or 8%. If it's over 10%, I really ask, like, what is the problem here? And is it something that I can fix? If they have a high churn rate, is it a fixable problem? Then the next thing you're looking at is the MRR, the ARR. Also, you're looking at the tech stack, the customer concentration, how much traffic they're getting in a wide range. I literally have a 50-point checklist that I look at. And if you want to see what that looks like, you can find the details down below. Or if you're interested in potentially buying a business and joining my program, we can set up a call. I'll leave a link down below. Next up is one of my favorite business models, and it's digital products. This is going to be a really good thing. If you're getting started and you don't really know what to start, digital products can be a great thing to sell. And I love digital products that come with some sort of membership. I always love figuring out what can I do to make a digital product that is on a monthly or sort of monthly basis or a yearly membership. So whenever you're going through any of these business models, think about what can I do on a monthly or yearly basis to charge my customers and deliver them value every single month. And so you might be thinking, hey, I'll make an ebook and I'll sell that. That's great. I wrote a book. You can find it on Amazon, and it has over 500 reviews, and you can actually get a physical copy, which is really cool, but it doesn't bring in monthly recurring revenue every single month. So what are the digital products that can do this? So there's a few really good examples of finding business owners who need design. So let's say you have a group of 100 designs, you release them out there, and then business owners can use those designs every single month. So then you've kind of created a digital product business where essentially they're paying a subscription to get access to your membership site, and every month they get access to all of these digital products that you're creating. This could be things like flyer templates, Facebook ad templates. There's a lot of ways you can do this where they're just selling those digital designs, and then they basically pay $20 a month, $50 a month. And it can also be used and powered by AI. Maybe make 100 cool AI sort of templates that people can use, and then you sell those templates. And the way to really make money on this is find some sort of hooks, templates, or sort of images that you can sell on a monthly basis, and then people get access to it. So last but not least, we have physical products. Now, physical products are going to be one of these things that are a little controversial. I'm not talking about drop shipping. I'm talking about a unique product that you built, you own, and you actually get it from somewhere outside of the United States or even in the US, and then you fulfill it to those customers. And a physical product business that is sold through Amazon and through your own store or like Shopify is going to be a lot lot better off. And something that's unique, has a high margin, or is a higher ticket is going to be a more successful business model that never fails. Now, physical products, there's so many different types. There's basically the low ticket, high ticket, and a few areas I suggest avoiding for physical products is anything in the retail, fashion, or something that has multiple sizes. The problem with this is returns are super high on clothing. Fashion trends change every single quarter, and basically it's a very hard business to monetize. So figure out things that don't have certain sizes. Maybe they're a little bit more unique, and you can sell it at a higher price point. Meaning if you're selling something for $500 to $1,000, you have a lot more margin to go ahead and sell that product through ads, through retargeting, through email, all these other sort of ways to sell physical products, and figure out something that actually solves a problem that people have. And the three biggest problems that most people have in their life are going to fall into these categories. It's either, well, people need help making more money, they have issues with relationships, or their health. So health is a great area because they can buy this thing, they can use it, and then you got to figure out what are some add-ons that we can keep selling these same consumers. So whenever you're coming up with a physical product, think about, here's the core thing, what can we keep selling them? Maybe every 3 months there's a new add-on for this product, or there's a new release for this product, and think about something that actually has a use case. So what I suggest people who are looking to get into the physical product space, go ahead and look at the last year. What physical products did you actually buy? Maybe you can survey your friends and family. Just say, hey, can you print out your Amazon order list? I want to see what physical products you bought in the past year, and then figure out like, hey, what problem did this solve for you? Why did you buy this? Would you have spent more on this? What did you like or dislike about it? And just kind of go through, and after doing 100 of these, you're going to come with some pretty good ideas of like where the gap is in the market, or what is already working well that you can improve upon. That's usually where the sweet spot is. Find something that's very popular, isn't delivering a good experience, and then how can you change and improve that, and you'll be successful. So in general, this is the 5 business models that never seem to fail. There's a lot of nuances that go into this. So if you want to chat directly with me, I would love to meet you in person, have a virtual coffee with you, and I'll leave a link below where you can do that. Thank you so much. And I'll leave another video up here where you can keep watching. And if you haven't yet, make sure to hit the subscribe button.